Good morning, everybody. Hopefully you had a great weekend. All right. So let's get started. Watching this video, you guys are doing great. There's an extra credit puzzle on the website, Logis Squares number 2, if you enjoyed the one last week. I know a few of you didn't. If you want to turn in the Logis Squares puzzle from last week, you can turn it in by today sometime. Email it to me. Make sure that if you're confused about how to do Logis Squares, that you open up the folder from last week Monday, or I guess last week Tuesday, and that you watch the video in there because there's an explanation of exactly how to do it. So today we're having a quiz on 7.1 through 7.3, which is just page 387, numbers 1 through 6. So I want to talk about that really quick. It's a case study about human body temperature. So the first question says that you're supposed to complete a hypothesis test for all adults, that includes men and women, by performing the following steps, and then you're going to change it on number 2 to confidence level, a level of significance of 0.01. And see how that changes it. And then you're going to look specifically at women and specifically at men's temperatures. So a few things. You are going to have to find data on your own, because if you look at this, here's the data. There's men here and women here. But on the first problem, when it's talking about everybody, everybody's stats are right here. So N is 130. Here's the claim right there, already set up. And there's your test statistics. There's your X bar, and there's your S. So if you were to put all of this data together, that would be the information. You are going to have to, for problems, 3 and 4, you're going to have to put this data in your calculator and find an X bar and an S, and in this one you'll have to find an X bar and an S. And make sure, by the way, that you are using 7.3 specifically for these, because these are, they don't know what the generally accepted standard deviation is for the population. So this is a sample standard deviation. So it'd be 7.3 notes that you're looking at. Okay. Shouldn't be too bad for you today. 6 problems, you can get it done. All right, now the nice news is that that's the last assessment for quite a while. We're not going to be doing any regular tests for a little while. But instead we're going to do a project where we're going to be interviewing people or doing an experiment and doing a hypothesis test on it. So that's going to come up on Wednesday. We're going to talk long and hard about the hypothesis test project. Tomorrow we've got one more section to get through in 7.4, but there will not be a Chapter 7 test. That this hypothesis test project will be considered your assessment for the whole thing. So the one part you can do about that for today is you can think of a question that you might want to ask a group of students or whoever, or an experiment that you might want to do at home. You don't have to tell me about these until like Wednesday, or possibly even Thursday, but it's a good thing to get started because it's kind of hard to think of a question sometimes. Here's a couple examples of questions I've had in the past. You don't have to avoid things that seem controversial. We just have to figure out the right way to ask them. For example, I had a student ask last year. She said, not last year, but this was like 4 years ago. She said, I think that at least 20% of music students only joined choir or band for the Disney trip. So she analyzed that. It turned out that she was wrong, but there was still like 10% of students that only joined choir band for the Disney trip. So notice this is a claim. So you need to think of a claim that you're going to say. You have to have at least something, and we're trying to make it a pretty close call. So you're going to try to make your guess as close to what you think is accurate. You don't want to be like, I think the average age of high school seniors is greater than the age of 10. And I'm, super certain about that. Well, I get it, but we're not trying to do a sure thing here. We're trying to do something where you could be wrong. Even if you are wrong about your claim, as long as you've done your math right, you'll still get absolutely full credit. So this is something where you're trying to kind of make a close call on. If you want to do an experiment instead, an example of an experiment that I've seen that I really liked was a student said that they think that their driveway has more worms on it after a big rain than their neighbors. And so what they did was they waited for a big rain to happen, and they went out to their driveway and they counted up the worms in their driveway. And then they wrote that down, how many worms that was. And then they went around to their neighbors' driveways with their permission and counted up all the worms in their driveways. And then compared the two. And so basically their mean was a certain amount of worms, and then their estimate was that everybody would be less than that. So if you can think of an experiment you could do at home, that would work, that you're interested in. Make sure this is something you're actually interested in. If you want to do a survey, you're going to have to ask at least 20 people. You may not just ask your friends, but you can pick which group of people you're going to ask. So if you decide, I want to ask the senior class this question because it applies to them, then I'll provide you with a list of all the seniors in the senior class, and you will do a randomizing selection with your calculator to figure out which 20 people you're going to ask. And then also you're going to, or you could pick a different group. You could pick like the whole school. If you specifically want to ask about middle school, you could ask them. If you want to ask the teachers a question, you could do that. And then throughout the week, once we get into this project, I'll be helping you make like forms so that you can send out surveys to people online and how to ask those questions. So again, you kind of want to think about what population, if you're going to ask a question, what population you'd like to ask, so I know what kind of list to get you. Or it could be, like I'm asking all the neighbors, or I'm asking all of my immediate family, but we do need at least, we need a lot of data points, so make sure that if you did something with family, that you have a big family. Okay, so think of an example, work on your quiz today, and then we'll talk about this hypothesis test project on Wednesday. All right, I miss you guys. Have a good day. Bye.